Hey guys, what's up? So I've been on holiday. You probably noticed it. There were no videos on my channel for 2 weeks. I had a great time. I went down to Cyprus and I really wanted to make videos. I missed the whole Battlefront beta phase, which is a shame because I wanted to play that game and really, share my opinion on it, but I missed that. Also, in the meantime, there was a lot of speculation about the Nintendo NX, which I'm going to make this video about right now. The new Star Wars trailer, I saw that, completely blew my mind. I want to make a video about that as well. But right now, I just want to focus on the Nintendo NX. In this video, I kind of want to break down all the speculation and some of the facts, apparent facts that we know about the console at this point. And in the beginning, I want to put something right because a while ago I made a video that was all about the rumor that the NX hardware is outdated already and that they're going to put very slow hardware in their machine that can't even keep up with the current gen Xbox One and PS4. But now new rumors have surfaced that actually make it look like quite the opposite is the case. Takashi Mochizuki, I hope I'm saying the name right, he is a tech journalist at the Wall Street Journal, and he released an article on how Nintendo right now starts to distribute software development kits for the new NX platform to third parties. So obviously people get their hands on these first demos, they are running on PC, and first information is leaking out about the quality, how it looks, and what hardware is required. And everyone that I've read about who got their hands on these demos said that in order to run them, you require cutting-edge hardware, or at least cutting-edge chipsets. Obviously, the hardware in the Nintendo NX is not finalized by any means. The console is not even announced yet at this point, but it looks like what has been shown to the developers at this point, based on this development kit, is really, really impressive, at least in terms of the initial stage of development. Also on nintendoforums.com, if you go there, you can find a thread where these guys spoke to a senior game developer in the US. Obviously, they can't go into too much detail who exactly he is and who he's working for, but he said, quoting, "Nintendo NX is going to have a very impressive hardware. NX is going to be incredibly powerful and quite possibly faster than whatever Sony and Microsoft have in store." Now, a little bit background on the hardware side. It is assumed that with this particular senior game developer, the demo was running on a Core i7 Skylake CPU and some kind of high-end graphics card. And rumors are that it didn't even manage to run with 60 FPS. Now, obviously, there will not be an i7 Skylake CPU or anything similar in the NX. However, they're going to optimize the hardware, they're going to optimize the software so it runs smooth even on slightly slower hardware. But already a while ago there was this rumor that Nintendo is working closely with AMD to develop a customized CPU GPU solution, and also several rumors have surfaced where high-ranking staff from Nintendo has been going in and out at Foxconn in China, which are the guys who are building putting together the current gen consoles and also iPhones. So it's probably the first address that you want to go to if you want to put a gaming hardware, a gaming console out on the market. So all this hints the collaboration with AMD particularly towards a rather powerful system at this point. Now, all of this sounds really great, but there is one big trap that Nintendo is running the risk of stepping into, which is the architecture around the hardware. They made that mistake in the past. If you just remember the N64, it had relatively fast hardware for the time, but then the architecture of the system was so difficult to port existing games onto that nearly no AAA or third-party developer brought their games over. So as long as they don't step into that kind of trap, then I think all is good. And that was a really smart move by Microsoft and Sony to put their consoles out with an x86 architecture, because obviously games are developed on PC and it's relatively easy to create a PC version and then port it to these consoles or the other way around because they are based on the same architecture. Now, we all heard the rumors a while ago that Nintendo is thinking about basing the NX on an Android-based operating system. Now, you know my opinion about Android. I made a video about that a while ago. It actually got a lot of hate. There seem to be a lot of really passionate Android gamers out there. I just think it's not an ideal platform to create a supposedly AAA console for. Yes, there are engines that allow you to export, games onto Unity engine, and also the Unreal Engine allows features like that to just simply export your games to Android, and then you just need to optimize it a bit to make it work. But it doesn't compare to an x86 architecture. And while it would fit really nicely with Nintendo's recent announcement of focusing more on mobile games, obviously Android would fit perfectly for that. But I just think if anything can hold back a system like that, that's really powerful, then it is the operating system or it is the architecture around the hardware. If that is not done right, then Nintendo will once again shoot in its own foot. And we have seen it in the past. I mean, Nintendo has a long heritage of using last-gen hardware. Right? Their hardware was always inferior to their competitors, the GameCube, the DS, the Wii U, the 3DS. All these platforms had inferior hardware compared to the other competitors. They were mostly focusing on gameplay, which is a fair decision, but it feels like if they really would put out a system now that is extremely powerful and faster than the other current gen consoles, they would kind of be breaking with tradition. And is that something that Nintendo is known for? Maybe not. But maybe it's time now to make a bold step forward and change their strategy slightly so they can put themselves back on the radar. And I really think that with the current gen consoles, Xbox One and PS4, already now having problems with running games at 1080p and 60 FPS, there is definitely a gap to be filled, right? Imagine if Nintendo would come out now and they have a console that can easily run the current games like Battlefront and all these games with an x86 architecture at 1080p with 60 FPS, people would buy that console like crazy. Also, the NX would have a 2-year advantage over the current gen consoles in terms of hardware. Obviously, hardware gets cheaper over the years, so the hardware that you can buy now was much more expensive 2 years ago when the other consoles came out, or maybe 3 years ago when they had to make a decision what hardware fits into the Xbox One and the PS4. So they do have loads of little advantages that they might be able to utilize if they're clever enough and turn the NX into a system that is really something that people want. And if that's the case, and Nintendo really learned their lesson and that they understood that people want graphics, right? They want great graphics. And despite having a powerful system, you can still run your 2D Mario game on that and it runs perfectly fine. But you also have the capability to run all these AAA third-party games. People want graphics, people want performance. And if Nintendo gets that insight and translates that into a device, then I really think they could win this console war with the console that comes out 2 years later. Now, another rumor that leaked out and that was across all the websites was that people who are familiar with the development plans of the NX say that it's very likely that the NX will contain both a console and at least one mobile unit, which allow you to play your games on the go or when you're at home in conjunction with your console. So it might be basically your controller, similar to the Wii U, where you have a screen on it, maybe not that big and chunky, but you can take it out, take it with you on the train, play on the go. Now, how does that come together with these high-end graphics? Let's think about that for a second, right? You have a powerful machine that renders high-end 1080p graphics. And on that note, actually, I read another rumor. I just didn't really want to put it in because the website where I got it from was a bit dodgy, and they said that they heard the rumor that the NX is actually using cartridges again. Now it wouldn't be unrealistic because you can get really small SD cards now that hold 64 gigabyte, 100 gigabyte. It's not a big issue anymore, so it could be a cartridge-based system, but obviously that is a rumor that has to be taken with like a massive grain of salt. Anyway, let's assume for a second it is a system that is powerful and you have cartridges that you put in and you play at home and you see the game in full glory on 1080p running with 60 FPS on your home screen. Now, how do you translate this really power hungry experience into a handheld device? There are two ways of doing that. The first one is you scale down the game. So you take the cartridge out, you go on the train, you take your handheld, basically your controller with you that probably has a little screen built into it. You put your cartridge in, and that screen maybe has a resolution of, 1,000 pixels by 800 pixels. So you don't need to render the full resolution anymore. You get a smaller resolution. You can basically cut the pixels in half. It requires less power and it's only half as hardware hungry basically. So you scale down the games and then you basically play the same game on your handheld device. But obviously that would be very tricky because every game that you develop would need two versions, right? You need one full glory version on your home TV, and then you need to develop a second version that runs on a smaller screen and is optimized for that hardware that would be in this handheld device. So to me, that is the only way this really could work, but it has a few implications that are really, really tricky. The other option, how you can solve something like this, is that you stream. Now, that is the obvious option. We've seen it with the PS Vita. You stream your PS4 content straight onto that. When you're out, you need a really solid 4G connection or a really solid Wi-Fi connection to stream games from your home console or maybe even from some kind of cloud service into your device. And I just don't see that happening at this point with the current infrastructure of internet. And I'm living in London, it's supposed to be rather good down here. With 4G, you never have like such a solid 4G cover, especially when you're on a train, right? When you're traveling, you'll never have a cover that allows for streaming a game in with like 1000 by 800 pixels or something with no input lag. Same for Wi-Fi. Public Wi-Fi spots are horrible, right? Even you're at Starbucks or whatever, you would never get a connection that's good enough to stream games to your device. So how are they going to put this together? If it really has handheld capabilities and high-end graphics, how will these two things come together like in a way that really works? I can't really see that happening. So there is a big question mark behind it. The other aspect is that when you're buying the NX, you would basically buy two consoles, right? You're buying a handheld that would have hardware in it, right? If it's, let's just assume it is the new 3DS, right? The new Nintendo DS is basically the controller that you use for your home console or something along those lines. And like I said, it's also your handheld device. But then you pay for two hardware boxes, right? You pay for the main console and you pay for the new Nintendo DS or whatever it is. So if they really have high-end hardware, how much would that cost, right? That's like $400 maybe on launch, maybe 450. And then you also have to pay for the hardware inside the small handheld device, unless it's just a streaming box, which I think would be a shit solution, to be honest. But let's assume there's hardware in it, then you pay another $150, $250 for that. So then you're at like what, $600, $700? That's a lot of money. Like, are people really willing to spend that much money on a Nintendo console? Who knows? Maybe they are. If it really delivers on all the 1080p 60 FPS stuff and the hardware is really, really powerful and they have like, a new Zelda game in perfect 3D with 1080p on launch and everyone wants to play this game, maybe people would pay that much. I personally wouldn't. Actually, leave that down in the comment section below. Would you pay $700 for a console with a handheld device combination like that? Would that be worth it for you if it runs or delivers on the high resolution and the 60 FPS? Would you be willing to pay so much for something like that? Leave that down in the comment section below. And then there's one last rumor that I want to touch on in this video, which is that Nintendo recently has patented a new scroll wheel shoulder button. I'll put the images right here of the patent so you can see how it looks. In a nutshell, you still have the shoulder buttons as you're used to having them, but you can also scroll them to the left and right. So that might be useful when you're scrolling through menus or something. Basically anything you would do with your mouse wheel, scrolling through weapons and all that kind of stuff. I can see it being useful. It feels a little bit like 90s, right? It doesn't feel very contemporary, but they've patented it, so it might be something that we will see in the new NX. Anyway, guys, these are the rumors that I found out, that I found interesting or relevant enough to put in this video. There's much more that can be said about this console, so if I forgot anything, if you feel there are other things floating around that are relevant, then leave those down in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you can leave me a like. You can subscribe to my channel for more, do all the good stuff, share the video. Anyway, guys, I hope to see you again on my channel. Until then, take care. And I'll see you next time. I'm out. Bye.